Hey everyone, my name is Ash Shukla, and I like to say namaste and welcome to Financial Chakras Abundance through Alignment. And today we have a special guest here. He is here to really help us understand how does mindset really work. You know, um, uh, for sales, welcome, my friend. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. Okay.
Ash, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, thank you, thank you. So, my friend, I wanted to just say thank you so much for taking the time and really having this conversation with us today. And I want to get to know you a little bit more. I want my audiences to get to know you a little bit more, and then we'll take it from there. So, what we're gonna do, those of you listening, as you know, I have a freestyle of doing things, and never I ask the same questions, so it's always different, and you never know what kind of surprises I bring to the table. So that being said, I'm gonna get started and start asking you some questions, my friend. Okay. So, um, when it comes to your, first of all, if somebody was looking at your profile right now, how would they actually pronounce your name correctly?
Pericles,
Pericles. Okay, Pericles. Thank you so much for that. So
of course.
Pericles, right? So look, I would the first one to admit I probably would have messed it up, just so you know. Okay. So
Totally fine.
Pericles.
And you wouldn't be the last person.
Okay, thank you so much, Hercules. All right, so I really appreciate you very much. You sound like Hercules. Are you guys
Would
related
that that
somehow?
were true.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. Okay, great, great. So no, buddy, I really appreciate you, and I want to get. So tell me a little bit about your story, right? Like, where are you from, and how did you come about this, being a money expert per se?
Yeah. Yeah, I started, I had a regular upbringing with a middle class family in Los Angeles, California. That's where I was born and raised. Both my parents were in the theater and entertainment industry. And there was a time in my life, I think I was in my mid 20s, where I realized that there was something missing, that I
Mm,
was living a life that really was very superficial and wasn't fulfilling for myself. So I started to look inward in exploring who I really was and ultimately who I wanted to be. And so I started doing some different programs and different works and different educations. And in the process of that, I got really clear that my intention, my purpose in life ultimately is to make a difference and contribute to people. So I started coaching people on their business and their personal life to grow and expand their success. And it was great. In the very beginning, it was awesome. They were making the kind of money, they were making more money than they were before, which is what we wanted. But I noticed that they were experiencing the same thing around money. So if they before started working with me, if they were behind every month at the end of the month, they were still behind. If they were just breaking even at the end of the month, they were still just breaking even. And this didn't make any sense because they were making a lot more money. Or if they were stressed, they were still stressed. So I started to examine it, and I started to research it and study it and look at it over the next several months. And in the course of that time, I discovered a couple of things about money. Number one is that we all have what I call a financial thermostat. It's actually our money mindset, and it determines three things: how much money we can earn, how much money we can keep, and our thoughts, feelings, and emotions around money. And in the process of discovering that, I started to look at, okay, well, how can we shift this? How can we reset this? How can we make it so we can make more money, keep more money, and have an experience of joy and happiness? And in the course of that time, I started applying this with my clients, and it was amazing. They were like, Pericles, this is incredible. The results were extraordinary. And they started sharing it with their friends and their business owners and their business friends and associates. And it kind of grew from there. And so I realized at some point, wow, I really want to focus on this. I love this conversation. And that was about 25 years ago. And in the process of those 25 years, this conversation has expanded. And I started to see more and more around money, that our relationship with money is a reflection or a mirror of our relationship with ourselves and the people around us and the world around us. And that this can be a very spiritual conversation. This can be a very energetic conversation. This can be a very practical conversation. So I've been in this conversation for a long time. It's one I love passionately. And that's one of the reasons I'm so excited to be with you today, Ash, is to really explore it and dive deep.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. And I truly agree that is a practical and it's a spiritual conversation at the same time. And I find, just so from is this what you're finding? Because I'm finding that, so when you're looking at energetically with money, whether it's a practical or is a spiritual way, we find like a lot of times I hear the myth of like, money is energy, which is true. Money is energy. The real question then becomes as to, you know, does it flow by itself? And who really channels the energy, right? And I
Mm.
find that people believe that the money just channels itself to your life. And is that what you find to be true?
Yeah, this is a great conversation. It's actually the foundation of all the work that I do, in that money is a universal band of energy and it flows just like any current, like electricity or water or wind. But it flows, in my model, it flows in a distinct way, in that it flows in a circle and we intersect that circle. So money flows to us, through us, and away from us, and then back around to us, through us, and away from us. And there's a reservoir on the side that we get to keep. Now,
Mm.
as this money flows, and it's flowing all the time, just like there's air around us all the time, there's a light around us during the day and night around us during the night. It's always flowing. But what we don't notice is that we actually have blocks in the flow of that money. And we can have blocks in the flow of money coming to us. We can have blocks in the flow of money going away from us. And we can have blocks in the flow of money going to that reservoir on the side that we get to keep. And it's these blocks that keep us from having the kind of experience around money, the kind of amount of money that we want. All of these blocks impact our thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and our ability to earn and keep more money. So when we clear these blocks out, suddenly we see money flows to us more abundantly, money flows to us faster, and we have this experience of joy and satisfaction in our lives. So I think that idea that money is a band of energy is accurate. And I think that most people would, if they kind of look at it, would think, okay, well, that kind of works in that model. But what we don't necessarily see is how we block the flow of money in our lives.
Yeah, I really, really love this conversation because when you talk about blocking the flow, when people believe that, first and foremost, blocking, like they don't even know it, right? Would you agree with that? Because that's what I find when, in my coaching time, and I'm sure you'll find the same thing, is that they're saying things that doesn't make sense. Like
Yes.
it just doesn't add up. Like, somebody was telling me today was, they're like, Ash, like, I wanna have, $1 million for my children. And okay, great goal, right? I mean, we're talking about balancing, and I'm talking to them, just it's one of the CEOs I was talking to, and they're like, I want to do this. I've built these companies and I've made multi-million dollars and stuff like that. And I want to leave a legacy.
Mm,
So the conversation around legacy, right?
yes.
And the legacy to them, wasn't like, okay, they want to leave, like, leave money for generations, or leave it to the world for, like, like almost like this almost like legends, right? Like, it's none of that.
Mm,
It- this particular person would just wanted to give it to the children, enough
mm,
for the children so they can take care of themselves, and this was a legacy. So when you
yeah.
talk about, so when they're talking to me though, they were just not clear. Like, they were not clear on what does that really look like, right? What does it really take? So on one hand, they're an extremely successful CEO,
Hmm.
doing 30, 40, $50 million a year in business, but they cannot seem to accumulate enough to take care of their children.
Yes.
Is that what
Yeah.
you find? Would you would say, like, what kind of, like, advice would you give somebody who is in that space, right? Like, where they are just saying, I wanna do this, but I'm just not able to. So do you
Yeah.
find that true?
Yeah, and in the limited amount of information that I have in this particular scenario, what I would say is that there's a block in the amount of money he can keep. So we have a lot, or she, if it's a man or woman,
Yeah, yeah.
we have a lot of people who can make a lot of money. They just can't keep it.
Right.
That is one of the dynamics of our financial thermostat. We see this
Yeah.
all the time with uh, baseball players and football players and people who make lottery winners are a great example as well. They have
Yeah.
this huge amount of money that they make, but their financial thermostat is only set for them to keep a certain amount. So no matter how much money they make, they're going to disappear that money until it comes back down to whatever that financial thermostat setting is, just like a thermostat in our room. If
Yeah.
it's set at 72 degrees and it's really hot outside and that hot air comes in, it's going to turn on the AC and it's going to bring
Yes.
the room back down to 72 degrees. It doesn't think. We don't have to worry about it. It just does what it's told to do or what it's programmed to do. And that's what our financial thermostat is just a setting. And so this person has a setting of I can only keep so much money. So now what he's dealing with, he's struggling over, I want to be able to leave this kind of money to my family. Well, the only way for him, not the only way, but one of the ways for him to do this is to really notice whatever that block is, clear it out, which then resets his financial thermostat at a higher level so he can actually keep more of that money and be able to leave to his children that which he wants to leave them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what I find is in this, as we're having the conversation, then thank you for that particular advice. I really appreciate that, right? Because you're correct, right? Because in your way of teaching, right, money comes in, and coming in is no problem because of what they're saying themselves. And do you find that people make rules around money, like rules of like, at least in my conversation with this particular person, what I found was they're making a rule, and the rule is, oh, business is easy. I can do $30 million, no problem,
Yeah.
right? Then
Mhm.
then it comes savings. Oh my God, it's a drag. Like, is that what you find to be true
Yes,
in your world?
absolutely. Yeah, and what's amazing is he wasn't even aware when he made the rule. The
Right.
rule was probably made when he was 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 years old. Most of us, these blocks in the flow or these financial thermostat settings, we made them up as we were very young kids, and we didn't
Mm.
realize that we made them. Kind of like money's the root of all evil. This is a great block in the flow that I hear all the time. Well,
Yeah.
money's evil, money's bad. Money's not evil. Money is not bad. It's just money. It would be
Right.
like saying a magnifying glass is bad or is evil because it could start a fire. Well, it's not the magnifying glass that's evil. It's not the money that's evil. Money is simply an amplifier of who we already are. So the more money we make, the more it's going to amplify who we are. Now, we all have the propensity to be good or evil.
Yeah.
Which do you choose to be? When you choose to be good, money's going to amplify you being good. When you're evil, money's going to amplify you being evil. You just look around at the world and see where that plays out. We have people with lots and lots of money who do horrible things that are horrible to people. We have people in the world who have lots and lots of money and they do nothing but good things.
Yeah.
So it's not the money, it's who we choose to be. And in this particular case, he's made some decision without even knowing he made it, where he is really clear, I can make lots of money. Keeping it, that's a whole nother story. And so it really is a matter of clearing that block, noticing the block, clearing it, and then creating a new relationship to money so he can keep as much money as he wishes.
I really love that. So, in terms of like the childhood trauma, right? And I find that a lot of times, clients that I work with, and I'm sure you are having the same thing, where they have childhood trauma, right? So childhood trauma might be they didn't have enough money, or they grew up in a very strict household, or they grew up in a very even stingy household. Like that's also an issue, right? Or sometimes they grew up in a very much of a lavish household, right? And then now they are grown up, and now they're because they're grown up, they have to deal with adult issues where they
Mhm.
no longer have parents to take care of themselves. And do you find that to be a troublesome issue, unlike as time has gone on?
Well, dealing with trauma is a distinct thing. Not everyone is needs to have trauma in order for them to have a financial thermostat setting that's not to their liking. It can be just a matter of, in my particular case, for example, I remember my mother when I was, I don't remember, 7 or 8 years old. We were watching a show called Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. If you remember it, it was one of the very first reality shows that was all about, the lifestyles of people who are wealthy and famous. And this particular episode was all about this family who very, very famous, very wealthy, and how disastrous their lives were. and how broken everything was. And I remember at the end of the episode, my mom saying very casually, with no agenda, I never want to have that kind of money. You get that kind of money and you lose your whole family. And in
Mm,
that moment, that 7-year-old little boy said, don't ever make too much money because you'll lose your whole family. That is where my financial thermostat got set in terms of how much money I can make. And for
right,
years, until I started doing this work, until I created this education, I could not make more than a certain amount of money, no matter how hard I tried. I would
right,
get better jobs, and then something would come along and either sabotage the job, I would sabotage the job, or some other expense would come along. There was always something that held me back. And then as soon as I saw that conversation, I was able to let it go, clear the block, and then create a new relationship to money. That's when I was able to like blow the lid off of what was possible. Now, here's the other part of that is at some point, it's important for us to distinguish what enough is and
mm,
what it is we want money for. So,
right,
I have my in-laws live in Thailand, and I go to Thailand and I see people who, by our standards, are very poor and yet extraordinarily happy and completely fulfilled. And you think, wow, I want to have that life. I want to have that experience of life. Yeah, maybe I'd like to have more money than that. I'd like to have some nice things, but I don't need those things in order to have that experience of life. So it's important for us to understand what it is we want money for and why. Because I guarantee 99% of the time, the people that I work with, they want money for reasons that money can never provide them. I want money to be happy. Never going to happen, guys. Never going to happen. The posts that I do about that get the least amount of follows or likes or views because people keep thinking that money is going to make them happy. It's not going to make you happy. Money's going to have me feel fulfilled or safe. No, it's not. I've literally worked with billionaires on the Forbes list, billionaires, and I've seen them living lives where they're constantly in fear. They're constantly struggling. They're constantly in this game of stress and anxiety around money and never enough money. So money doesn't provide joy and happiness. It doesn't provide security. When we understand that, then we can start to look at, well, what do I really want money for? Well, I want these things. Great. Well, why do you want those things? I want those things so I can feel happy or I can feel joyful. Okay, great. What if you could actually have that joy and happiness and fulfillment before the money ever showed up? What if you could have it
mm,
right now? Because that's what you say you want the things for, to have that experience. Well, what if you had the experience right now before the money ever came? Well, the money's going to show up much more easily if you're in that space before the
yeah,
money ever shows up. And then if the things disappear, you're still going to have that sense of joy and happiness. So we get off that hamster wheel of I got to get money in order to be, I got to get money in order to be. And we actually have the in order to be right now. And then the money shows up and suddenly it's like, whoa, I originally wanted money to be happy and I'm already happy. Now what do I want to do with this money? It becomes a whole different game and an adventure.
yes, it does, isn't it? And that's the beautiful part of this conversation, right? Because I find that people want money to have a particular type of a feeling that they are associating with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like this, I was talking to somebody the other day, and in India there's this dish, right? And just like here, we have a simple thing as I'm gonna call it a veggie burger because I'm vegetarian. Okay,
Yes.
so a simple thing as a burger, right? And so you could literally go someplace and feel financially free, right? Feel like, and I came here from India with $20 and zero English. So,
Mm.
when I came here, the first time I remember, we haven't had pizza before. Back in 1980s, like, I don't know if you know my story, but like first time we were coming here from India, and literally we had a plane delayed from Mumbai International Airport. We get to London. First, I thought it was beautiful. We had never been in a plane before. It was absolutely gorgeous. And to me, like I had arrived, like just in the plane. Forget about coming to US. Just in the plane, I'm like, oh my god, that's amazing,
Yeah.
right? And then I go to London Heathrow Airport, and I'm like, wow. I was like, my jaw dropped. I'm like, whoa, that's gorgeous, right? Then I had to go to restroom, and I couldn't find restroom because I didn't know what to ask, right? So
Mm.
I was looking at these doors, and I was literally looking at this door. People were going in tense and coming out happy. I'm like, that must be a nice place because people are really happy when they come out of there, right? That was my experience. But if you really think about that, and then I didn't know how to ask for food, and my first we learned that we have missed our connecting flight, and so we thought like literally like everything had left us, and we had $20 each, and we couldn't speak English, and this Indian lady helps us out. We get vouchers, and we go downstairs to eat. Now it's 1989, London Heathrow Airport. There are only two words for this: good luck. Like because we are vegetarians, right?
Right.
So we get a spaghetti, a bread roll, and a salad, right? That's
Mm.
what the lady helped us get. I'm like, I never had grass before, and I go for the grass because I was so hungry, because the feeling I wanted to have was fulfillment.
Mm.
So I go for the grass, and it was horrible. It was some bitter grass. Okay,
Mm.
I didn't like it. So then I said, okay, no problem. I'll go for spaghetti. They were plain noodles, like Kung Fu Panda noodles, right? And then I'm like, that's horrible too. And then I go for bread roll because I think bread is universal. So I go try to
Mm.
bite the bread. I couldn't bite the bread. It was basically a soup roll, English soup
Mm.
roll, right? So I couldn't
Mm.
bite it. And then next day we made sure we took the correct flight and we arrived here. But the reason I say this story is because it's the feeling that we were having throughout the journey,
Mhm.
right? So first we carried the feeling, then came the result. First we carried the
Yep.
feeling, then came the result. And I was like
Yep.
eating this grass. I thought I was hungry and I just wanted to feel fulfilled, right? But some way, shape, or form, even though as beautiful as the airport was, as beautiful as the plane was, right? We somehow manifested this food that's not for us. And do you
Mm.
find people doing the same thing with money? And they're manifesting money, they want to manifest money, right?
Mhm.
Versus, and then they end up manifesting something else.
Yes. Yes, this happens all the time. And this is why people fail at manifestation, because they're planting the seeds of manifestation into soil that's poisoned with their negative mindset. They don't realize it, but that's what they're doing. And then they expect this crop to grow. But then what the crop that grows is, like you were saying, is bitter, like the grass, or hard, like the roll. So it's like, I don't understand. I'm not getting what I wanted. So there are a couple of reasons, a couple of things to look at here. Number one is if you've got a negative mindset around whatever it is you're trying to manifest. So for example, you're saying, okay, I want to make $1 million. I want to have $1 million. I want to have $1 million. But what's coming up is, yeah, but not for you. You're too stupid.
Yeah.
If that's the voice you're hearing, or a million other things that could be being said right then that are negative, if you don't clear that out, you are now planting the seeds of manifestation into poisoned soil, and those seeds will never sprout the way you want them to.
Hmm.
So it's really important that you clear that negative thought out so that you're planting it into a pure, fertile soil so that it can flourish the way you want it to flourish. That's really, really important when it comes to manifesting. And then the other thing around manifesting is people are generally trying to manifest to fix something. I want this because I don't want that. And as Abraham Hicks says it so brilliantly, we get that which we focus on. The Buddha said this as well. We become that which we think. And if we think in terms of negatives, I don't want this, so I'm going to do that, we're going to get more of what we don't want, because we manifest what we focus on. And when we're focusing on fixing a negative through what we're trying to manifest, we're just going to get more of the negative. So it's really important that we not try to manifest in order to, or to fix something. We have to let go of whatever it is we're worried about or stressed about or don't like. It's great that we have those things, because then we can see the contrast. Well, I see this and I don't like it. Okay, that's not what I want. So let go of it. Stop worrying about it and start focusing on what you do want. Without that contrast, we can never really know what we do want, because we don't know what we don't want. It's kind of like living in a world that's all darkness. We wouldn't know anything to distinguish darkness from anything because it's all the same. We need those contrasts, and we want to embrace those contrasts. Oh, that's not for me. Let it go. Move on. What is for you? What is it you do want? And focus on what you do want. And the more that what you don't want shows up, the more you have to let it go and surrender to what it is you do want. And these two keys will give you a lot more power when it comes to manifesting.
Absolutely. And this is interesting because we're talking about this, is, you know, uh, is the fact that, I was talking to somebody today and they are literally hanging on to something that they shouldn't be hanging on to. They're making good money with it, right? But is draining. It's literally draining them, and I could sense the energy. And then they have started this something new that's truly rejuvenating for them, and it's truly helping. And they make money with that too, right? But the limiting, but the thing is that this is holding them back while this is pulling them forward, and they feel like they're literally stuck in the middle.
Mm,
I mean, I find that to be ironic because I remember when I was you know so what I was kind of like looking at from my side is when I was in the financial planning world, and when I was transitioning into consulting coaching side of the game, right? I was finding myself to be same way. So where what do you advise people if they're stuck in their middle, right? What are some of the techniques you can give them to help them create that breakthrough that they're necessary if they're
mm.
stuck in the middle like that?
Yeah. Well, first, we want to look at why we're stuck. What is it we're holding on to? What is it we're unwilling to let go of? And look to see if we follow our hearts, if we truly follow our hearts in what it is we want to do, everything will always work out. We will always get what we want. It's when we allow things, again, to poison that soil where I can't let go of this. It's like being in a bad relationship. I don't want to be single. I'm afraid of being single. So I'm staying in the relationship, even though the relationship may be toxic or not working for you or abusive, whatever the case may be. And we're just used to it. And it becomes, and this is something I work with my clients all the time, we actually get addicted to these negative mindsets. We get addicted to these negative behaviors. They're literally an addiction. There's dopamine hits that we get out of keeping this addiction in place, just like somebody who's addicted to alcohol or cigarettes or something else. It is something that we need to then acknowledge. I'm addicted to this behavior. I'm addicted to these negative thoughts. And let go of that by looking at what am I getting out of this? Why is this feeding me so much? Oh, I like to see other people suffer, or I like to see how other people aren't doing well, or I like to gossip about other people because it makes me feel better, or I have a low self-esteem, so I'm going to stay in this negative, toxic relationship. When we can notice that and we can truly acknowledge it without any judgment, you know what? I've got low self-esteem, and that's why I've stayed in this relationship. I have no self-respect, and that's why I'm staying in this relationship. And I choose something else. I'm choosing to be my own best advocate. I'm choosing to give myself something that I deserve. And I'm
Mm,
letting go of this relationship now. And I'm going to focus all of my attention, all of my love, all of my joy, all of my passion to this new thing, whatever it is. Sometimes it'll be just you for a while, and then the right relationship will show up. Or sometimes the right relationship will show up much faster, or the right business. And in this particular case, he's got one foot in one world and another foot in another world. One world is holding him back. And if he can acknowledge whatever it is that's having him hold on to this old world, if he's clear that it's not the world for him, if he's clear that it's pulling him down and diminishing him energetically, physically, emotionally, spiritually, great, then he can release that and let it go, or not. The choice is really up to him. And this is the important thing for all of my clients. The choice is theirs. I'm simply there as a guide. I'm simply there to show them A and B, what the pros and cons are both, ask them questions so that they can get the clarity and make the choice for themselves. Sometimes I'll say, well, here's what I think, but you choose for yourself because it's not my life. I'm not the one living the life. You're the one living the life. You're the one who has to live with the choice. So you get to choose what it is you want.
Yeah,
And I will, sorry. And the last thing on that is, and I will point out when what they're choosing is inconsistent with what they say they want.
yes,
That's the true nature of a coach
yeah,
is I want X. Great, Pericles, you want to be in great shape. Why are you sitting home eating donuts all day long? Why
yes,
aren't you at the gym and watching what you eat? That's what a coach does. Hold you to account for what you said you wanted.
yeah. Pericles, I love this conversation, by the way. And so when it comes to people in debt, because a lot of people find themselves in a lot of debt, right? Like, and in this particular scenario that I just talked about, where somebody's trying to get out of their situation, the number one thing that they need to do is really need to take a pause and acknowledge that they're in this situation. Am I understanding this correctly? Number
Yes.
two, they need to analyze exactly what's going on and how much is it holding them back, whatever the situation is, right? And then also analyze what is the path forward for the new situation, that the new business venture that they're looking to get into, and then do the mathematical equation accordingly in order for them to move forward. So I love that. Thank you so much for that, for
Mhm.
clarity. Number one. Number two, now let's talk about people who are in debt, right?
Mm.
People who want to get out of debt and they are really, really struggling. Okay. So because they are struggling really badly, they feel desperate sometimes, you
Mm.
know? So what are some of the best ways you found that people can get out of debt? Some maybe in the business debt or in personal debt.
Yeah. This is, I think, one of the most challenging conversations for people because debt is something that weighs on the majority of Americans. I think, yeah, I think I was just listening to something earlier today that said the average American has something like $22,000 worth of debt, unsecured debt. And I think the first thing we want to look at is why are they in debt? Why am I in debt? What have I done? And if I look at myself, just take myself for example. I remember when I was very young, this is another example of how our financial thermostat gets set. Talking to somebody, I don't remember who it was. It wasn't a family member, but it was somebody I knew in my life who said, when I was very young, Pericles, you're going to always have debt. It's fine. Don't worry about that. You'll always have debt. Don't ever worry about that. Just do what you're doing. And I thought, okay, I'm going to always have debt. So it's totally fine. Then, of course, I got my first credit card and I ran that up, maxed that out, then got another one and started to max that one out. But as long as I could pay the minimum payment on both of them, I was totally fine because I knew I was going to always have debt. So one of the things that I think is important for us to look at is why do we have the debt that we have? And what I found with the majority of my clients, and this was the case with me, is we want to look like we're wealthy. And
Hmm.
so we're willing to go into debt to try to look like we have wealth. So we'll spend money on things we can't afford. We'll go out to dinner with friends when we can't afford it. We'll even pay for everybody. So it looks like we've got all this money. And when we actually don't. So we're willing to actually go into debt to look like we have wealth. And that's the first thing that I think people need to deal with is, you know what? I don't care what other people think about me anymore. I'm not interested in looking wealthy. I'm actually interested in creating and building true wealth. So I'm no longer going to take any actions that are inconsistent with that. And that means if I can't afford it, I'm not going to go out to dinner with my friends. And I'm going to let them know, you know what? I don't have the money for this right now. Maybe we can all come to the house and hang out. We'll have pizza or something. That is within the amount of money that I'm willing to spend on that. And then the second thing is, and I want to preface this too, and I know I've already started talking, so I can't really preface it, but I want to say now before I continue, is I know that there are people out there who are genuinely struggling, who are genuinely in a place that is not necessarily of their own doing. You know, we have medical debt sometimes, we have just catastrophic things that happen, and they're really genuinely struggling. And I'm not diminishing that in any way, shape, or form. I understand that. This is more for people who are in a place where okay, I've got all this debt, and they can really start to look at how they're responsible for being in this place. So the next thing I recommend for anyone who's dealing with this kind of situation is you have to understand how much money you're earning and where your money's going. Without those two things, you're never going to get a handle on your debt. You've got to know. And this is one of the first things I have all my clients do is I want to know every penny that you're spending in the course of the month. I want you to write it down. I want to know every single penny. They go, every penny? No, I'm not going to do that. Great. Then you're never going to create wealth. You have to understand where your money's going. And you have to understand where your money's coming from. So how much money are you actually making? How much are you keeping every single month after tax? What's going into your bank account? And then where are you spending your money and how much is that? And what we find is after a month or two, because it usually takes them a couple of months to figure out where they're spending all their money, what they realize is what their spending's here and what their earnings here. And how they're closing that gap is through credit cards. And so the first thing that they're able to do once they understand and they know, like they've got the knowledge of what's so about their finances, then they can start to make choices. Whoa, I didn't realize I'm spending all this money on streaming services. I'm spending all this on this or on that or on this or on that. I don't need to spend all that money on those things. I'm going to stop spending. I'm going to start closing that gap. Then we get to the point where we've got it here where income and outflow are equal. Now we want to focus on reversing it, where we've got more money coming in, which allows us then to start saving that additional money. That's that reservoir on the side that we get to keep that I was talking about earlier. This is where we really start to build wealth. So there are 3 stages in the flow of money in the model that I've created. One is we're behind the flow, we're catching the flow. It's kind of like being behind the wave. And every month we're behind. Every month we're behind in our bills. We haven't made enough to pay all of our bills. That's called catching the flow. Then we're in the flow. We're at the top of the wave where we really start to feel this momentum where at the end of every month, I've paid for everything. I've made everything I need. I'm like at the end of the month at 0, which is great. The third stage, the most powerful stage, is where we now have that wave behind us. And if you're a surfer, you know what this feels like. It's like all of a sudden, this momentum of the wave is pushing you forward. And that's where at the end of every month, we have more. We have a surplus. And we get to take that surplus and we get to flow it into different accounts that are all about building wealth. And when we get to that place is when we really start to feel that momentum and we start to build and grow wealth every single month. So we want to distinguish where we are. We're catching the flow, we in the flow, or are we ahead of the flow? And the only way for us to do that is to know exactly how much we're spending and exactly how much we're making, and then start to make choices about what we're spending based on our desire to create true wealth. And that's where the hard choices come in. And the example I would use is with a client that I had many years ago. And she said, we just started working. She had literally had no money. Her expenses were higher than her income. And she got on a call with me one week. She said, okay, Pericles, I got a problem. So what's the problem? So well, my best friend's getting married back east and I got to go to the wedding. So I'm going to have to fly back there and go, stay in a hotel and be with. I'm like, okay, well, where's the money? Did you save the money for that? No. So how are you going to pay for it? Well, I'm going to just put it on a credit card. I said, okay, so you're choosing to go into more debt when you've just said you want to get out of debt and you want to start to build wealth. Well, she's my best friend. And I said, okay, well, let me ask you a question. If you were to call your best friend and say, look, I cannot afford this. I do not have the money. I literally don't have the money to be at your wedding. I'm so sorry. What do you think she would say? She would say, don't come. I love you. You're my best friend. Your being at my wedding would be great, but I'm not going to ask you to go into debt just to be at my wedding. We're going to be best friends for the rest of our lives. Don't worry about it. Right? Absolutely. That's what a true best friend would say. Yeah. Anyone who would say anything other than that to pressure you to go, they're not a best friend. They're somebody that wants to hold you up as a trophy. They flew 3,000 miles to be at my wedding. That's what they want to do. So these are hard choices. And these are the choices we must make if we truly want to be wealthy. And that's why wealthy people are wealthy, because they made those hard choices. And then the choices get easier as we start to have more wealth. Then we can have more things that we want, but we're always making them inside of that conversation.
Absolutely. So what you're saying really is that somebody who is really in that tight spot, right? They need to, so one of the things that I find that whenever somebody's doing that, they're feeling like they want to be important. right?
Mm,
Or they want to, because they want to feel important, they show it by outward, materialistic things.
right.
And then what they really want to do, what they should do in this case, is that they should stop thinking so emotional. Specifically, the example you gave with a friend, right? It's not about emotion. It is emotional to a degree. Like, you can still tackle emotion with a different level. Like, she could, in this case, call her friend up, or go to her friend if she's nearby, or something else, to really show the gesture that you really matter to me, and you're very important to me, and I really love you. I really care for you. But financially, I'm going to make this decision because of this logical reasons, right? So you
Right.
are really going from a emotional point of view. You're taking yourself out of the equation, saying, hey, I'm important. I'm going to make myself feel important, because you're going to appreciate me when I show up at your wedding, right? And therefore, I'm willing to spend all this money even though I don't have it.
Right.
And I'm going to take myself out of there and really be in the service of making sure that I serve you and I serve my money frequency, so that I can really take care of my future. Am I understanding this correctly in terms of
Yeah.
financial?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if we look at it in a very simple terms of, are you more interested in looking good, or are
Right.
you more interested in creating wealth?
Exactly.
And the choice is each and everybody's choice. And sometimes we'll make the
Right.
choice, I really want to look good here. Okay, you just got to own that that's a choice you made. And you can't
Yeah.
complain or lament that you're not building wealth because you gave into that addiction to, I got to look good. I got to look like the
Absolutely.
sport of the wealthy one.
Yeah, and also, like, accumulating debt it is a habit, right? In terms of a habit is concerned, and just like accumulating wealth is also a habit, right? Like,
Yep.
would you say that?
Absolutely. These are muscles that we need to build. These are neural pathways on
Right.
the brain science level that we need to build, where we get look, we've been doing this for years. Most people whip out the credit card, whip out the credit card, whip out the tap, tap, tap. We don't even think about it. It's
Yeah.
muscle memory. It's
That's all.
these neural pathways that have been firing and wiring together for ages, right? We need to break those and create
Yeah.
new neural pathways. We need to create new muscle memories, new ways of doing things that will then become the predominant way of doing things over time. But it takes time and effort.
I love that, my friend. Pericles, I love this conversation. Just so I could go for hours with you, my friend. It is such a good conversation, because two money-minded people that are coming together to help people on the other side. Those of you who are listening to me, I want to say I love you guys very much. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. To me, and also to Pericles, so that way, we can both help you in some way, shape, or form, and we would be honored to help you in any way we can. Right. And I know, Pericles, do you have a website you would like to share with them real quick?
Sure. Yeah, they can find me at periclesrelas.com. And
Pericles
all
Relas.
my periclesrelas.com. All my socials are there as well. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all of it's there. So
Okay.
yes.
Okay, so Pericles, what I will do is I'll those of you who are listening to me, and in case you're having hard time, don't worry. His name is right there, so it's very very easy. But I will make it even easier, that I will put it into description. Those of you who are listening to me on a podcast, I'll put in the description, so make sure you have it, so you guys can visit his website and things like that. So I want to let you guys know I really appreciate all of you very very much. Okay, um, and hang on one second, Pericles. Okay, don't leave. So that being said, guys, I really really appreciate you. I love you guys very very much. I want to let you guys know that what Pericles has shared is absolutely gold. And my friend, I want to thank you so much for being part of my podcast today. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, so that way I can give you some more amazing amazing information as time goes on. My name is Ash Shukla, founder of Financial Chakras, and welcome to Financial Chakras, abundance through alignment. And my friend, I'm here with you to take the journey all the way to your destination of financial wealth. My name is Ash Shukla. Namaste and thank you.